Hello everyone, welcome to another informative and interesting session of the Analyst. In today's video, we are going to discuss in detail about 5 important topics as featured in today's The Hindu and Indian Express for your larger understanding of the current affairs. The topics are as follows. We will begin our discussion by studying about the election system of India and the model code of conduct that has come into effect. Then we will read about the important contribution of the legendary freedom fighter Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose in our country's independence. After that, we will make ourselves aware about HbA1C and OGT test being recommended for the identification of diabetes. It will be followed by the analysis of India's foreign exchange reserves and its significance for India's economy. Towards the end, we will read about what is advance tax and the recent data related to it. The handout for the discussion will be available in the description of the video for your effective revision. So let's begin. The Election Commission of India announced on 16th of March the election schedule for the upcoming 18th Lok Sabha elections, which will take place in this year of 2024. The elections in India forms an important component of your GS2 paper under the theme of functioning of Parliament. As we are aware that the Lok Sabha elections take place every 5 years. However, keep this in mind that unlike Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha can be dissolved any given period of time by the President, and this can happen in 2 circumstances. First, that the government in power does not hold confidence in Lok Sabha, which means that a no confidence motion has been passed, or if there is absence of any alternative government which can take over. Also, the constitution states that the maximum gap which can exist between the last session of a dissolving Lok Sabha, let's say 17th, and a new session of the upcoming Lok Sabha, which will be the 18th Lok Sabha, can be of 6 months. Thus, as the 17th Lok Sabha has completed its 5-year term, the Election Commission of India has announced the election schedule for the 18th Lok Sabha election, which will take place in 7 phases and will be conducted from April 19th to June 1st. And the result will be declared on June 4. With this announcement by the Election Commission, the Model Code of Conduct has immediately come into effect. But before we study about the Model Code of Conduct, let's first try to understand the election system which exists in our country and is regulated under the constitutional provisions from Article 324 to Article 329. The Article 324 provides for an independent election commission to ensure free and fair election in our country. The Election Commission has the power to ensure election for Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, President, Vice President as well as state legislature. Currently, this Election Commission comprises of a Chief Election Commissioner who is Rajiv Kumar and 2 other election commissioners who are Gyanesh Kumar and Sukhbir Singh Sandhu. These election commissioners are appointed by the President of India. Then the Article 325 states that no person shall be made ineligible or excluded from the electoral roll on the basis of religion, race, caste or sex. Keep this in mind that a person can be excluded from the electoral roll on the basis of place of birth, which basically means that if you are registered in the electoral roll as a voter in the state of Uttar Pradesh, then you cannot go and vote in the elections in Kerala. Also, the Article 326 provides that the election shall be based upon adult suffrage. Thus, under 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1989, any person who is 18 years of age or above can vote in the Lok Sabha election irrespective of that person's income status, educational qualifications, etc. At the same time, there does not exist any separate electoral roll such as once it was envisaged by the Morley-Minto reforms of 1909 and played a pivotal role in the partition of our country. At the same time, the Article 327 empowers the Parliament to make laws on electoral rolls, delimitations, etc. Thus, the Parliament has enacted two important acts, that is Representation of People Act 1950 and the Representation of People Act 1951, which regulates the various kind of electoral measures in our country. For example, the Representation of People Act 1950 provides for qualification of the voters, preparation of the electoral rolls, delimitation of the constituencies, and allotment of seats in the parliament and the state legislature. On the other hand, the Representation of People Act 1951 provides for the actual conduct of elections in our country. It establishes an administrative machinery for conducting these elections. Also, it sets certain qualification and disqualification for the candidates. At the same time, it deals with election offences and disputes and provides for the registration of the political parties who are going to participate in these elections. Then let's say that there is a dispute related to a election of a candidate, such that one person is contesting that this particular candidate has involved in giving bribery or hacking of EVM. Then such election dispute can be filed under an election petition by any member who is the part of electoral roll in the constituency or any rivaling candidate. And such election petitions are triable in the High Court, while the appellate jurisdiction to that lies with the Supreme Court. However, under Article 323B, which was introduced by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1966, it empowered the Parliament to establish a tribunal to deal with election disputes. However, Supreme Court in Chandra Kumar case 1997 held any such tribunal related with election dispute as unconstitutional. Keep this in mind that till now no such election tribunal has been formed in our country, and even if they are going to be established in the future, the appeal will lie to the High Court. Now, as we saw that under the Representation of People Act 1951, it establishes an administrative machinery for the conduct of election, which comprises of various officers at various levels, such as the Chief Electoral Officer, who conducts and supervises the election of the whole state. Then comes the District Election Officer, who supervises the election in the particular district. Then there is a Returning Officer who has been given the responsibility to supervise the election in a particular constituency. And then there is an Electoral Registration Officer who is responsible for maintaining the electoral roll for the election which is going to take place. Keep this in mind that this CEO, DO, RO and ERO, all of these are appointed or nominated by the Election Commission itself. Then there is a presiding officer or a booth level officer. this presiding officer or booth level officer is actually appointed by the district election officer, not by the election commission, and he is ultimately responsible to conduct the polling at one booth with the help of polling officers who are basically the government employees such as a school teacher. This is the whole electoral machinery which exists in our country. As we discussed that with the announcement of the date of election on 16th of March, already the model code of conduct has come into effect. The question arises that what is a model code of conduct? Model code of conduct is basically a set of guidelines which has been issued by the Election Commission of India to regulate political parties and candidates before the election to ensure that there takes place a free and fair election. Such model code of conduct is applicable from the date of announcement to the date when the results will be out, and that is 4th of June. Under these guidelines, there are several prohibitions which has been imposed on the government, political parties and candidates. On the government, such as that government cannot now launch a new project or even lay foundation stone for a new project. Why so? Because let's say that if this provision is not incorporated, then that means that the government tomorrow is going to say that whoever will be vote for me, I am going to give that person 15,000 rupees. So it is obvious that the voter will be influenced and vote for this particular political party because they are seeking some monetary grants. Similarly, the candidates are prohibited from announcing any financial grants, and any current member of parliament cannot sanction grants from the discretionary funds such as MP LATs. At the same time, the government authorities cannot promise infrastructural development. What does this mean? It means that let's say tomorrow if you become the district magistrate and you do not follow the principle of non-partisanship and you are politically aligned to a particular party, then you go to a particular village and say that if you are going to vote to this party X, then I am going to promise you certain level of infrastructural development. These kind of promises are also prohibited under the Model Code of Conduct. Also, ad hoc appointments in the governments and public sector units cannot take place if it is being done to influence the vote bank. At the same time, the Model Code of Conduct lays down several other provisions such as for issue-based campaigning, ensuring that there is no hate speeches or caste or religious appeals, or there is no criticism of any aspect of private life of the candidate. At the same time, it directs the political parties to refrain from any unverified and misleading acts. Then the news channels and social medias are also regulated to ensure unbiased reporting during the election period. Thus, Model Code of Conduct ensures that there remains a homogeneous atmosphere and no such social enmity takes place. And the concept of free and fair elections is ensured through this Model Code of Conduct. It was first experimented in the Kerala Assembly elections of 1960. And the first Lok Sabha election where Model Code of Conduct was applied was the third Lok Sabha election of the year 1962. However, keep this in mind that Model Code of Conduct does not have any legal backing, which basically means that if I am a political candidate and I violate Model Code of Conduct tomorrow by promising some financial grant, then is there some legal action which can be taken against me? No, because it does not have any statutory backing. However, let's say if Election Commission of India issues a notice against me that I have breached the Model Code of Conduct, then what is my responsibility is that I should give a written reply. and such weak implication is termed by various political parties as a mere slap on the wrist. However, beside Model Code of Conduct, the Election Commission of India can use its extraordinary powers under Article 324, which establishes it as an independent commission. Right? Thus, it can actually direct the political parties to act in a certain manner and take some punitive measures as well, as it took in the 2014 Lok Sabha election, where it banned several prominent BJP leaders and Samajwadi Party leaders because they were charging the political atmosphere, so it banned them from campaigning. Thus, the Election Commission of India has an important responsibility in the upcoming 18th Lok Sabha election to ensure free, fair and transparent election, which is going to take place in the largest fair of democracy in the world. Taking such measures will ensure the ultimate victory of the common man of India. With this, we move forward to the next news of the day. The legendary freedom fighter Subhas Chandra Bose has been in the news because, as per a recent exhibition, it showcases that how Subhas Chandra Bose was awarded Bharat Ratna in the year of 1992 by the then Narasimha Rao government. However, the family of Subhas Chandra Bose refused to accept the award as it refuted the claims around the death of Subhas Chandra Bose, which remains controversial even today. Thus, the significant contribution of Subhas Chandra Bose forms an important component of your GS1 paper under the larger theme of Indian national movement. Moving away from the controversies, in this session, we will try to read and learn from the significant contribution of Subhas Chandra Bose and will try to get inspired from his devil-may-care attitude as aspiring bureaucrats. Thus, Subhas Chandra Bose was born on 23rd of January 1897 in Cuttack, which was then in the state of Bengal and is currently in the state of Odisha. Recently, the government has declared that the 23rd January will be celebrated as Parakram Divas. Then, in the year 1913, he joined the Presidency College in Calcutta to complete his BA in philosophy. However, in 1916, in this Presidency College of Calcutta took a very famous incident called as EF Oetten incident, where Subhas Chandra Bose, along with his classmate, beaten up the history professor E.F. Otten, who was saying bad things about the Indian culture. Because of this brave act, Subhas Chandra Bose was actually expelled from the Presidency College, and thus he had to complete his BA in the year of 1919 from the Scottish Church College. Then, due to his urging of his father, he finally decided to take the Indian Civil Services examination in the year 1919 and thus left to London and joined Cambridge University. In the examination held, he secured 4th place for 6 vacancies of that year. There was still remaining a second stage which had examinations related to Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act and a horse riding test, etc. But at the same time, there was a nationalist movement brewing back home in the form of non-cooperation movement led by Mahatma Gandhi. Thus, Subhas Chandra Bose found his calling to fight for the freedom of the country and wrote an apology letter to his father back home, where he wrote that it is not possible for me to serve the country in the best manner if I am chained to the British civil services. Thus, by the June 1921, Subhas Chandra Bose was back in India and he joined the non-cooperation movement. As per historian Leonard Gordon, Subhas Chandra Bose went and took an interview of Gandhi during the non-cooperation movement, where their ideological differences were very much visible. For example, according to the Gandhi, non-violent means of protest were essential and non-negotiable when it came to achieve independence. However, for Subhash Chandra Bose, all means, even the extremist means, were very much usable if it came to throw the foreign colonial power from our country. At the same time, while Gandhi used to support a democratic form of government, Subhash Chandra Bose was more aligned with the totalitarian model of governance. However, as their basic idea to achieve the independence for the country was one and same, they both got together and ultimately Subhash Chandra Bose joined the Indian National Congress and he was inducted into the Congress by his political guru C.R. Das. Then in the 1922, he founded the newspaper Swaraj, and by the year of 1923, he became the president of Indian Youth Congress. From the year 1924, he also started editing a newspaper called as Forward of C.R. Das. Remember that it was C.R. Das who was the leader of the pro-changer side of the Congress. Then, in the year 1925, Subhash Chandra Bose was arrested when he was leading a protest march and he was imprisoned for 2 years and sent to the prison at Mandalay, then in the British Burma. When he was released from the prison in the year of 1928, he became the General Secretary of the Congress. And he was also accorded the status of the General Commanding Officer of the Congress Volunteer Corps, as can be seen in the image, where in the 1928 Calcutta session, he kind of led a youth military brigade. However, this was completely unliked by Gandhi because he was sticking true to his pacifist means. Also remember that in the year 1928 itself, Subhash Chandra Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru both opposed the Motilal Nehru report, which demanded for the dominion status for our country as on the likes of colonies such as Canada and Australia. However, Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, they were actually demanding for the complete freedom or Purn Swaraj. Thus, for this demand, they created an Independence for India League in the year 1928. The first president of this Independence for India League was not Subhash Chandra Bose, not Jawaharlal Nehru, rather Srinivas Iyengar. Then, because of his active participation, he was jailed during the civil disobedience movement from 1930 to 1932. It was this very same time when he started writing The Indian Struggle, the book written by him, which captures the history of Indian freedom struggle from the year 1920 to 1942. Finally, he became the president of Indian National Congress in the Haripura session in the year 1938. And under his presidency, he launched a National Planning Committee, which actually acted as a model for the National Planning Commission, which came later after the independence. And this National Planning Committee was headed by none other than Jawaharlal Nehru. At the same time, remember that he also created a Women Planning Committee, which was led by Lakshmi Bai Rajade. Also, then comes this whole period between 1930 to 1938 is considered as the high noon of politics for Subhash Chandra Bose. Because in the 1939, during the Tripuri session, even though Subhash Chandra Bose defeated the Pattabhi Sitaramaiah, who was the rival candidate, his election as a president was actually criticized by the prominent leaders of Congress such as Sardar Patel, Rajendra Prasad, Gandhi, J.B. Kripalani, etc. And the reason for that was because when someone used to become the president of Congress, he got an important power, such as that he could now appoint the Congress Working Committee. And Subhash Chandra Bose wanted this Congress Working Committee to follow the socialist ideals. However, the Congress Working Committee was not in favor of such prolonged socialist ideas, and thus they resigned. Also, then this senior lot of the Congress started pressurizing Subhash Chandra Bose, and thus ultimately he had to resign, and finally Rajendra Prasad became the president in the Tripuri session. Thus, Subhash Chandra Bose formed an All India Forward Bloc in the year 1939. Remember two facts about All India Forward Bloc. First and foremost, it was a party within the Indian National Congress. And second, this All India Forward Bloc was formed before the onset of World War II, which started from 1st of September 1939 with the invasion of Poland by Germany. Thus, when this onset of World War took place, Subhash Chandra Bose actually campaigned for mass civil disobedience movement and also led a procession to remove the Holwell monument, which was created to commemorate the Britishers who died in the Black Hole tragedy in the year of 1757 at the hands of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla. Thus, whenever he was leading this procession, he was actually arrested by the Britishers and kept in the prison for 7 days, where he took the fast until death, and finally he was released and kept under house arrest. Then he escaped from house arrest in this wanderer car and finally escaped to Germany via Afghanistan and USSR. Now, when Subhash Chandra Bose reaches Germany, his aim was to utilize the Nazi army to invade and free India from the British rule through USSR and Afghanistan and finally reach to India. For this purpose, he supported the fascist government of Hitler and established an Azad Hind Radio and Free India Center in Berlin. It was here in Dresden, in Germany, where the Indian prisoners of war first gave him the epithet of Netaji. And finally, by the year of 1942, when Germany started war with Russia and started facing several kind of setbacks across the Europe, Subhash Chandra Bose came to the realization that Germany army will not support him to get the freedom for the country. Thus, he set and sailed on a U-boat or a German submarine and arrived in Indonesia or Malaya, which was then captured by the Japanese. Japanese were also the part of Axis power along with Germany, but they were facing a lot of success as they had captured Philippines, Indonesia, Malaya, etc. Thus, the Subhash Chandra Bose decided that if I cannot get the freedom from the West, I will get the freedom for my country from the East. Thus, he took the charge of the Indian National Army, which comprised basically the Indian prisoners of war and was established by Mohan Singh and the efforts of Raj Bihari Bose. So, Subhash Chandra Bose took the chairmanship of INA and formed 4 brigades under Indian National Army, whose name was Gandhi Brigade, Nehru Brigade, Patel Brigade and Rani Lakshmi Bai Brigade. Then on October 21, 1943, he formed the Provisional Government of Azad Hind. And on January 1944, the headquarters of this Indian National Army was shifted from Singapore to Rangoon in Myanmar, which was then captured by Japanese. It was here where he gave the clarion call of Chalo Delhi. And it was here where, while addressing to the soldiers to lighten them up, he said the famous lines, "You give me blood, I shall give you the freedom." Also, the INA hosted the first tricolor flag on Indian mainland in Moirang, Manipur. But by the time of 1944, this Indian National Army and Japanese Army started facing a lot of setbacks with the failure of Yugo offensive mission and Imphal campaign, where they lost several battles in the region of Manipur and Naga Hills. Then finally, after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan surrendered in the World War II on 15th of August 1945. And as per the government records, Subhas Chandra Bose died on 18th of August 1945 in a plane crash which took place in Formosa, which is currently in the country of Taiwan, and he faced third-degree burns, and because of that it became the reason of his death. However, this claim has been contested by several authorities as there is no solid evidence which has been found for his death, and thus the mysteries and controversies has been continued. However, keeping the controversies aside, the Subhash Chandra Bose has remained alive in our hearts for his incomparable contribution to our country's freedom and keeps inspiring us to achieve the dream of a strong and sustainable India. With this, we move forward to the next news of the day. The Indian Diabetes Federation has recommended for adoption of more sensitive tests to indicate the risk of developing diabetes. This issue of diabetes and associated tests such as HbA1C and OGT test forms an important component of your GS2 paper under the theme of issues related to health sector. So let's first try to understand what is this diabetes. Well, to work or to perform any function such as I am doing right now, that is speaking, we require glucose. Glucose is basically the basic currency of energy in our body, which we derive from carbohydrates, which from like the foods which we eat or the drinks which we have. Now, this glucose is carried into our bloodstream and in all of our body cells by the blood. Then, to convert this glucose into the form of energy, you require a special hormone or chemical messenger which is called as insulin. And this insulin is produced in pancreas. However, in certain persons who does not have an active physical life, such as they do not go for walk or run, or they have an obese life where they eat a lot of fast food, or it can be a genetic factor as well, or let's say they are consuming a lot of alcohol or tobacco products. All this leads to a situation where this insulin becomes ineffective to transport the glucose into the blood cells. Thus, the amount of glucose in the blood cells actually starts increasing as the insulin is unable to convert it into the form of energy. And this high level of glucose in the blood is called as a situation that is hyperglycemia or diabetes. And persistence of such diabetes or hyperglycemia for a very long duration of time can impact your heart, your kidney, your vision, and it has a lot of symptoms such as increased thirst, slow healing cuts and sores. Even if you are doing a small amount of work, you are feeling a fatigue, or unexplained weight loss. Now there exist two kinds of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. What is the difference between them? Type 1 diabetes is when your body is no longer able to produce insulin, or the insulin being produced by the pancreas has declined. This usually develops during childhood between 14 to 16 years, but it can also develop at any age. At the same time, genetic factor plays a very important role in type 1 of diabetes. Also, there is no known such prevention methods as such, but normally insulin injections are given to level up the insulin in your body. Then there exists a type 2 diabetes where your body is still producing the insulin, but it is not making enough of it, or it is not being used in the efficient manner, which means that your blood cells have developed a kind of resistance against the insulin. This can develop at any age, but is most common in the adults over 45 years of age. This normally happens due to inactive physical life, overweight, family history, or high blood pressure. Normally in this case, the healthy living or possible insulin support is provided. Now keep this in mind that a healthy level of insulin in the body ranges from 2.5 to 25 units per liter. Thus, let's say that if you go for the doctor checkup and the insulin in your body is less than 2.5. This indicates that you have a type 1 diabetes where your pancreas are not producing enough insulin. But if you have more than 25 units of insulin in your body, it means that you have a type 2 diabetes. Basically, your body is producing a lot of insulin, but it is not being able to use it because of a kind of a insulin resistance. Thus, to deal with this issue of diabetes, the doctors have been prescribing for various kind of tests, such as HbA1C test and OGT test. So let's first try to understand HbA1C test, which is basically a glycated hemoglobin test which tells the average level of glucose in the blood in last 2 to 3 months period. The normal range is derived at 4 to 5.7%. However, as per various medical experts, this HbA1C test or hemoglobin A1C test is unable to effectively detect IH or intermediate hyperglycemia and T2D or type 2 diabetes. Thus, the International Diabetes Federation has recommended to adopt OGT test, which is oral glucose tolerance test, which measures the blood sugar level 1 hour after PG, that is plasma glucose, load of OGTT, where 75 grams sugar solution is consumed, and then after 1 hour this OGT test is done, which effectively tells that whether your body is able to convert the glucose into the form of energy and how much insulin is present in your body and is body effectively utilizing it. If the normal blood glucose level is 140 mg per dl or milligram per daily liter, if it is coming above 155 mg dl, then we will say that it is the case of intermediate hyperglycemia. But if it is going above 209 mg per dl, then we will say that it is a case of type 2 diabetes. Now keep this in mind that it may sound like a small problem, but India has the second most diabetic patients in the world after China. and we have more than 75 million diabetics in our country as of 2023 health report. Thus, this adoption of OGT test shall be done by India for faster identification of the patients and their speedy treatment. With this suggestion, we move forward to the next news of the day. As per Reserve Bank of India, India's Forex reserves or foreign exchange reserves has further expanded by $10.47 billion and has reached to $636 billion in March 2024. This forms an important component of your GS3 paper under the theme of Indian economy. So let's first try to understand what is Forex or foreign exchange reserves. Foreign exchange reserves are basically the assets which are held by the central bank of a country such as RBI, and they are denominated in a foreign currency. Now, such Forex has four components. The first is the foreign currency assets, which can be your bonds, government securities, treasury bills, etc. Now, this foreign currency assets forms the largest share of India's forex, up to 90% of it, and it amounts to $562 billion. Now, this foreign currency assets, as majority of it is denominated in dollar, we denominate or calculate this foreign currency in the terms of dollar. But keep this in mind that the effect of appreciation and depreciation of non-US units such as euro, yen, pound, that will also be considered when we are calculating the foreign currency assets. Then the second is the gold reserves which India puts, and that amounts to around $50 billion and is the second largest component of our foreign exchange reserves. Then comes your special drawing rights, which are basically the kind of currency assets which was created by International Monetary Fund in the year of 1969. As we have already covered in the previous Analyst, such special drawing rights are not a form of currency, rather a claim of various currencies such as euro, dollar, pound, yen, and China's renminbi, etc. Thus, these special drawing rights basically act as a token which can be used by India to exchange various currencies. Currently, this forms the third largest component at $18 billion. Then comes the reserve tranche position, which basically India keeps with IMF as an emergency account, and we can utilize this in any emergency situation, and this is currently $4.8 billion. Thus, with $636 billion of foreign exchange reserves, by March 2024, India currently has the fourth largest foreign exchange reserves in the world after China, which has the largest, then Japan, and then finally Switzerland. Now, this foreign exchange reserves keep on fluctuating, as we can see that it went its lowest of 578 in 31st of March, and then it has finally risen to $636 billion. The highest our foreign exchange reserves, if it has ever gone, that was $646 billion in the year October 2021. Now, as we have read about the reserve tranche position of IMF, let's try to solve a prelims question which appeared in the year 2020, which was a direct question asking that the gold tranche or the reserve tranche refers to what? It refers to basically a credit system which is granted by IMF to its member countries. Now, one might be wondering that why India keeps such large forex reserves. What is its utilization? Because it has several importance. These foreign exchange reserves helps us in meeting our foreign obligations. For example, India is a highly import dependent country when it comes to oil. Almost more than 80% oil is what we import from other countries. And many a times we need to do this payment in internationally accepted currencies such as dollars and euro. Thus, also there are several kind of debts which our country has taken, and payment for that also goes in these foreign currencies. Thus, such foreign exchange reserves ensure that India will be able to pay for its external obligations. Thus, we'll be able to meet our foreign obligations. Also, as we have seen, that it provides us with import cover, right? In the sense that, let's say, if from tomorrow there is no incoming of foreign currencies in the form of trade or foreign direct investment or remittances, then how we will be able to pay for this oil which we are importing from these foreign exchange reserves which we have created? Thus, it acts as an import cover, and with the current foreign exchange reserves which we have, India currently has the import cover of around 15 months. At the same time, the Forex helps in strengthening the Indian rupee. How does that happen? Let's say that the demand of dollar increases sharply. So it is very obvious that the value of dollar will increase as well. And if that is happening, in comparison to that, the value of Indian rupee will decline sharply. Now what RBI will do is that it will intervene in the market and will increase the supply of dollar from its foreign currency asset. Thus, as the supply of dollar will increase, the value of rupee will increase, correct? Because there is more dollar, so its value will decline. The value of rupee will increase, and thus we will be able to strengthen our currency's stability. And with such stability and the ability to meet our import cover, it provides us to ensure the stability of balance of payments. Then it infuses the confidence in markets and investors who have trust in the Indian economy that if some extreme event will take place, RBI will be able to meet its foreign obligations, ensuring FDI, FII, FPI in our country. With this, we move forward to the next news of the day. The advance tax has been in the news because recently the receipts for central government has actually increased from such advance taxes by 6%, reaching to rupees 2.85 trillion. This forms an important component of your GS3 paper under the theme of Indian economy. So let's first try to understand what is this advance tax. Advance tax is basically an income tax or direct tax which is paid much in advance rather than the lump sum payment at the end of the fiscal year. Thus, there are 3 or 4 time brackets which has been provided by the government, let's say 15th of October, 15th of March, on which you can actually go and do advance payments. How you will be able to do these advance payments? Because you will be able to calculate your total earning in the year and you know exactly the amount of the tax which you need to pay to the government. Now, who is required to pay this advance tax? Well, as per section 208 of Income Tax Act of 1961, every person, if his estimated tax liability is more than or equal to rupees 10,000. Now keep this in mind that let's say if you are a working professional, a salaried professional, then the company which you are working for will itself do the tax deduction at source. Then the businessman, the self-employed person, or if there is any person who is generating or is working in a micro and small industry, that person is required to do this advance tax payments if he is earning above rupees 10,000. Now, such advance tax includes your rent, if you have invested in share, or if you have earned any kind of interest from the fixed deposits. Such advance tax is calculated by a simple formula where we first come to your total tax liability. In that total tax liability, we add your education cess, your senior higher education cess, and that forms your total tax liability. From this total tax liability, we are going to deduce the tax deducted at source as it has already been paid, and that will form your advance tax liability. From such advance tax, senior citizens who are above 60 years and they are not having income from any kind of business or profession is basically exempted. Then these taxes or direct source of revenue is very integral for the government to generate revenue, and from this revenue itself the government invests in various kind of social welfare schemes as directed under Article 38 of the Constitution. Thus, it is a good news for us in the report where it has said that the center's advance direct tax receipt for the fourth quarter actually increased by 6%, reaching to rupees 2.85 trillion. At the same time, this will ensure the fiscal deficit target which the government has taken of 5.8% of GDP, this will remain ensured. Now, such advanced tax collections are a good indicator that there is a corporate profitability which is taking place. At the same time, there is rise in the earning of individuals. Now, such increase in tax collection has been possible because of several steps which has been taken by the government, such as faceless e-assessment, new tax regime which was launched in the budget 2023, then the reduction in surcharges of the income of individuals from 42% to current 39%. Then the corporate tax has also been reduced to 22%. And at the same time, the government has launched Vivad Se Vishwas scheme for faster resolution of direct tax disputes. With this, we have reached to the end of our discussion today. Do not forget to attempt the questions at the end of the video and test your knowledge. We will meet in a very interesting session very soon. Till then, all the very best and thank you.